Hey guys, how's it going? Michael Troy here. Today we're looking at Samarie, Mistress of the Martial Arts, #1 from Continuity Comics by Mark Beschum and Neal Adams. Look at this gorgeous cover. This is one crazy ass comic book, I am not gonna lie. So this is what we're looking at today, guys. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button and let's get right into it. Okay, so Neal Adams, legendary comic book creator. Huge fan of Neal Adams. I shouldn't say huge fan. Like, I'm not buying every single thing that he buys. I believe I discovered like his X-Men run, and that kind of made me love him more. But back in the 80s, the late 80s, he, started his own independent comic book company, Continuity, a real hodgepodge, largely superheroes. He was kind of like artistic directing, drawing, or at least had a hand in a lot of the books. Mark Beschum drew this, very much like in the same sort of wheelhouse as Neal Adams. Very photorealistic, almost Greg Landish in a way, as you will see on the interiors. But I feel like some of the poses in here would actually make Greg Land blush, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I love this cover. I love her talking to Armor, who is from the reader's point of view. Armor is another character from the continuity line. So this is like Neal Adams. I believe they did have newsstand distribution, which was kind of big. Huge line of comics. They were kind of sporadic all over the place. Megalith. I feel like I only got Megalith and Samarie. As gorgeous as the art is, the writing is simply terrible. And it just really doesn't make sense. This is a first issue, so, you would expect like an origin issue. But we're introduced to this character here who looks, I made the Greg Land reference. Mark Beschum is an amazing artist. I believe he's like one of those artists who uses a ton of photo reference, obviously. So pencils, Mark Beschum. Original story, Neal Adams. Lettering, Ken Bruzenak. Color, Liz Berube. By the way, I should say Ken Bruzenak is such an awesome letterer. So it's fun to see him here. Inks, Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey, the famous inking team from the 70s and 80s. If you were a collector of that era, you should know that name. But check this out. Okay, so we get introduced to this character. I don't think she's ever called Samarie. We don't get her name. We don't get any sort of backstory on her, whatever. So, of course, they specifically make a point to point out the fact that she's only 16 years old, as she should be, like in these crazy, suggestive poses and things like that. So she's kind of working out. This guy is ignoring her. She's foreign or something. Like, it's very fish out of water. She's like, oh my God, what's a newspaper? I mean, not like that bad, but pretty much, you know what I mean? So, like, the writing is all over the place. We get Megalith and his buddies. So this is like Armor and Silver Streak. So this feels like the beginning of like the introduction of a teen book or something. I have to say the art is gorgeous. I mean, look at this page here. Neal Adams very much worked in a studio fashion. So he worked with artists who are like coming in and doing inks over his style, and a lot of, I would imagine he's working on a lot of the books himself at this point. Because this looks very heavily Neal Adams, especially like some of these faces here. So I'm wondering if he's coming in and doing it. Like really beautiful rendering and shadowing, and I'm wondering if he had any hand in the page layouts too, because you're getting like the crazy sort of Neal Adams, like just wonky panel layouts and things like that. So there's like a hostage situation at a museum. I'm gonna try to muddle through the story because like there kind of is no story, and it kind of makes sense. Two things, like I was wondering if this sort of ushered in the bad girl craze, or at least influenced it a little bit. Like Samarie sort of predated the bad girl. She's very concerned with like everyone being loud and like making too much noise. There's references to the characters later in the book being too loud to fight. Like, it doesn't make sense. They're fighting in total darkness in this museum. And she's whispering. So I'm wondering, like, it kind of made me think, like, oh, is this like, was this inspiration for Echo from Daredevil? The deaf ninja, whatever. I don't know, maybe. So, you know, it's a museum, so you got the huge, like, whale replica hanging. It's so funny because there was a list of hostages. The story comes out, oh, yeah, she's reading the newspaper. But it's so funny, like, sign of the times, I guess. Like an active hostage situation, you're reading about it in the newspaper. I don't know, so you have to go help. And one of the hostages is Tom Savini, and I was like, wow, that's a coincidence. Makeup artist Tom Savini. And lo and behold, it really is. There he is. Anyone who knows, if you know, you know, Tom Savini. That was kind of fun and weird. And I thought, well, Neal Adams must be friends with Tom Savini and thought it would be fun to throw him in the book, or Mark Beschum is. I don't know. But either way, it's just so crazy. Like, spoilers. The spoiler is that this story makes no sense. It's crazy, out of control. You get so many beaver shots of Samarie, 16-year-old Samarie, like just pointing it right in your face at the camera throughout the whole entire issue in her scantily clad dress. We do get to learn that her name is Daryl. And I'm thinking, like, this is right around the time, like, Splash and Daryl Hannah was so hot. You're like, who the hell is Daryl Hannah? But, you know, if you saw Kill Bill, you know. You know, the bitch with the patch. Anyway, I mean, all these, it's so TNA, it's very bad girl. We get introduced to these other characters like Silver Streak Armor and Megalith, and they just sort of like randomly appear. Their powers are just like kind of innocuous and don't really make sense. Armor is called Armor because, I mean, he wears armor, and she's like so impressed by his like armory, but literally it's like a sword and a grappling hook, and she has a sword herself. And then Megalith, and like they're all being too loud. Speaking of, like, okay, so they're fighting in the darkness, which makes perfect sense. They don't want to make noise, and they're fighting in the dark. Like, I don't know what's happening here. It is just beyond crazy. Special shout out to the colorist for absolutely ruining the beautiful art in this book. I mean, Liz Barub, I know the name, like, so, I mean, clearly a talented colorist, you know, knows what she's doing, but it is so dark and oversaturated. It looks like early Image books. I don't know what happened to continuity. Like, this gorgeous art could just not support this crazy, like, almost non-existent writing. It is crazy. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I thought, I wonder, you know, like, I don't feel like Neal Adams has ever been known as a great art writer. You know what I mean? Like, as fantastic as he is as an artist, and this isn't even his art, by the way, but he's just not that great of a writer. And, like, I think everyone kind of knows that, which is kind of a shame because we don't have like the definitive like Neal Adams. Even when he did like that Fantastic Four graphic novel a while back, like it was just crazy, right? Or like the Batman Odyssey and all that crap. I don't know. Whatever happened to Mark Beschum? I'm trying to think of like other stuff that he drew, and I mean, I know his name. I know he worked on some Marvel stuff. Super talented. Love his art. I mean, the fight scenes and the choreography here, the storytelling is like really good and on point, but it just doesn't make sense. Like the exposition, like Megalith is like holding this guy and he's like grappling with like what to do with him. It just doesn't make sense. It's so crazy, out of control. Any fans of continuity, like largely, I think when I reviewed Megalith, like the large takeaway is that they're beautifully drawn and just like horribly written. They just don't make sense. The story is just so weird. I love this panel here. I mean, I do want to say, you know, most of my reviews are very positive, and I do am living for this art. I think conceptually, it's a shame that these characters didn't have a chance. Like, there's a scene here, this bullet is going in slow motion at Samarie, and, you know, she's supposed to be a samurai or a ninja or whatever, and all she can do is pivot enough to hopefully get less damage. And of course, Armor has to save the day in one of the most gross out scenes from this book, if not any comic book ever. He throws his blade at this guy and it gets caught, like slides in under like just the front of his arm, his forearm. That is so grotesque and so wonderful and amazing. And I just love that that is like randomly in here. And an otherwise, like, I guess average comic book. And then once again, like there's problems with the film output, like the lines are just not matching up, which bothered me because Neal Adams' conceit is that he's coming from advertising. He's bringing all these tricks of the trade and revolutionizing comic books. So kind of dropping the ball on the production level of his own line here. I mean, just look at the crazy butt shots and like, isn't that so crazy? Like crotch shots for days. I don't know. Like this green, like dark, muddy, crazy, right? I don't know. It's so fun. And then I feel like it was short-lived. Like, I don't know how long, Megalith, loved Megalith, but how many issues did they go? I mean, not in the dozens or the teens or anything from what I recall. I'm like, I'm not even sure if Samarie got a second issue or not, but if she did, I low-key want to find it. I mean, Freak Show from Bruce Jones and Bernie Wrightson. So they had a lot of fun stuff going on outside of like the initial superhero like angle of the publishing, weird cliffhanger. This green is crazy. It's giving me like Spawn vibes. I don't know. I mean, look at that. Just like in your face. In storytelling, in film and comics, from point of view, there's like a worm's eye view and a bird's eye view. And for Samarie, we're gonna christen a new point of view, the beaver eye view, because all I see is beaver for like 22 pages, and it's crazy. Like, I don't even know. I feel like it was a little distracting for me at the time. I mean, I was like a super young reader, and I probably picked it up because I love like a blonde heroine, living for that. But my goodness, like this outfit, like this would never fly today. A 16-year-old in this kind of outfit is just crazy, okay? But sign of the times, y'all. Coming soon, Crazy Man. Speaking of crazy, I wonder how that was. That must have been fun. It's so weird. Like such a sign of it, like such a a moment in time. Jason Kreider, Toy Boy. I mean, lots of great, like interesting, fun concepts, killer designs, art, and just like a complete failure in writing. Like if you're gonna leave and jump ship and just, maybe bring an editor with you. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like that happened a lot when, somebody has huge success at Marvel or DC and goes on their own without an editor, and it shows sometimes. And this is kind of an example of that. Love the Art Deco kind of font there. Samarie, the logo a little hard to read or not? I don't know. Anyway, fun moment in time. Definitely a moment in comic book history. Beautiful Mark Beschum art. Fun concept. Great characters. Poor writing. And just like, I don't know what happened to continuity. I need to do some research. Anyway, so that was Samarie #1 by Neal Adams and Mark Beschum. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button, and I will bring you more soon.